Everyone, welcome to another episode of Mindset Monday. It's Dr. Trevor. It is great to be with you today. So today's topic is so foundational to our health and to our well-being. Today we're going to talk about boundaries, and specifically we're going to talk about boundaries with ourselves. So as we get into today's topic, before we get too far into it, I just want to quick shout out to those of you who are joining us live today. Today is the day that we actually are launching a 14-day challenge on boundaries. It's a challenge called Strength Begins with Boundaries. So at the end of today's episode, I'm going to explain a little bit more of what it is and just an encouragement. If you haven't already gone into our platform, found it on the website, in the app, I want to encourage you, go find our 14-day challenge, because that's one of the applications that we're going to take from today. Okay, so if you've ever felt, or maybe now you're feeling overwhelmed, overextended, I just feel like you're running on autopilot, man, today's episode is for you. So we talk about boundaries and boundaries with health. I think it's important to start with, what is a boundary? In simplest terms and technical kind of terms, a boundary is just where something stops and something else starts. I mean, that seems pretty simple, right? A boundary helps us separate or differentiate, right, between where something stops and something starts. We often think about boundaries in our relational work. In fact, some of you might have read the book Boundaries, or there have been other books about the topic of boundaries that have come out in the last number of years. Super helpful. Again, I think oftentimes we think about boundaries as boundaries that we set with other people. But today is foundational in the conversation of being able to say, before we set boundaries with other people, we have to be able to set boundaries with ourselves in a meaning and healthy and productive way. So again, remember I talked about that a boundary is where one thing ends and something else starts. As it relates to our relationships with others, it's not about pushing people away. It's not about pushing them out. It's actually being able to recognize what is ours and what's not ours. What is our role? What is our responsibility? What's not our role? What's not our responsibility? What is ours to carry? What is not ours to carry? Okay, so in this work of boundaries with self, again, it's going to build us towards the work of boundaries with others. By the way, next Monday, that's the topic we're going to cover. We're going to talk about boundaries with others next week. Okay, so when we think about this, the idea of boundaries, as I was talking about this idea of boundaries with others as an example, they're the quiet, daily honoring ourselves, our limits, our needs, and our own humanity. Whether it's boundaries with others or, again, today's topic, boundaries with ourselves, they sound something like, I will rest when I'm tired. Like that commitment we would make to ourselves. Or I will pause before saying yes. That's key. We're actually going to talk about that more today. I will pause before I say yes. And then this other part is I will respect my own bandwidth, my physical bandwidth, my emotional bandwidth, my mental bandwidth, whatever it might be. I will respect my own bandwidth. It's another way of being able to say I will set in place boundaries. All right, so as we jump into this, I think it's important, and this is where the mindset part of today's Mindset Monday comes into play. Mindset is not about being selfish. Mindset is about stewardship. Okay, let me say that again. The mindset of boundaries is not about selfishness. It's about stewardship. Now, why is that so important? Because I think for many of us, we learned somewhere along the way. It was modeled for us. It was taught to us that setting boundaries was kind of selfish. It's kind of rude. How dare you think of yourself rather than someone else? How dare you put yourself first before someone else? And that's the mindset shift we're going to make today. Boundaries are not about selfishness. They're about stewardship. So why that's important is because it's about taking care of our energy, our time, our resources. We talked about bandwidth. our peace, so that we can show up more fully in our relationships with other people and in the world around us. Like, stewardship just simply recognizes we are human and our resources are finite. It means that we have the wisdom to be able to align ourselves in a way that is consistent and that is, importantly, sustainable for us to continue to show up with others in our lives, whether that's people, whether that's projects, whatever that might be, whether that's at home, whether that's in the workplace. So when you set a boundary, it's not that you're saying that you value someone else or something else less, or that in some way that you're somehow like selfish or narcissistic and rude to be able to prioritize yourself over someone else or something else. But again, it's about this idea of stewardship, to being able to align the things that matter most to me, my values, my morals, my commitments, all right, those things that are so important to us. And we pair them with alignment, again, with our energy, our time, our capacity, right, in a way that we are able to honor ourselves and others in the process. All right, here's a key part of this mindset shift for us in this idea that boundaries are not selfish, but rather they are stewardship. Is simply doing the math that every time we say yes to something, we're inherently saying no to something else. So let's think about this in this idea of that we all have a finite capacity. Maybe one of the simple examples is time. Like, in order for me to say yes to something, and it would require my time, well, then I'm not able to do anything else with that time, right, that I am committing to the thing I said yes to. So every time I say yes to something or to someone, I'm inherently saying no to other things in my life. So before we get to the logistics and the practicalities of that, let's just start with this idea of, so why do we say yes to things that maybe we might want to say no to? This is a hard one. Why do we say yes to things that we might otherwise want to say no to? I want you to just take a moment to kind of evaluate this for yourself. I came up with a short list of reasons that might be common. In fact, I connect with this list. You might too. I think oftentimes we say yes. We're quick to say yes when we might rather say no in a few of these things. I think a big one is just fear of disappointing others. Like, somebody might ask us, hey, can you support me? Can you help me? Can you do this for me? Can you join me? And we're just so quick to say yes without really assessing if we have time, energy, bandwidth, if we've made other commitments or we have to juggle our schedules or make adjustments. We're often quick to say yes because the thought of disappointing them, the thought of saying no to them, actually it scares us, it worries us, it brings fear. Like, that might lead to the second one, fear of conflict. Like, I think it's in our relationships. Like, we don't want to be in conflict with people. I mean, I don't know a person on this planet who enjoys being in conflict with people. Well, one of the ways we can avoid conflict is by accommodating people. In fact, I often do teachings and trainings about conflict resolution. And one of the very effective strategies for conflict resolution is accommodation. If I just keep saying yes to someone, they'll never get mad at me. We'll never get in a fight. It will never cause conflict, right? If I just keep giving in, if I just keep saying yes, and I just keep accommodating them. Well, that shows up in boundaries. Not just boundaries with another person, but boundaries with ourselves, which we'll get to in just a moment. I think a third one is oftentimes we feel guilt. It's back to this idea of a former mindset, which is boundaries are selfish. But again, today we're dispelling that idea. We're choosing a different mindset. They're not selfish. It's an act of stewardship. But again, back to this idea of why. Why might we say yes when we want to say no? I think for many of us, and for myself included, historically, it's because I just wanted to avoid guilt, right? I didn't want to feel bad about prioritizing myself or something that I wanted to do rather than supporting someone else or something that someone else wanted to do or wanted me to do. So I would say yes. And I think the last one, at least on my list, and I know that there's many others out there, but I just wanted to share a few of them with you, is just simply habit. Like, I have found myself with this habit formation over years, time after time after time after time, where I'm just so quick to say yes. And so every time I say yes, it just makes it easier next time to say yes, right? There's this habit formation that happens over time. Maybe this was taught to you, maybe this was modeled for you, maybe just because of the other reasons, over time you've begun to develop this habit where you're just quick to say yes. I think in my case, if I just reflect on that, I think there's, in my past, I think there was a lot of peacekeeping. I think there was a lot of people pleasing. I mean, that might be the case for you as well. Again, you're quick to say yes out of fear of disappointing others, fear of conflict, fear of guilt, or just simply out of habit formation. So back to this idea of every yes is also a no. I just mentioned that a moment ago. Every time we say yes to something, we're inherently saying no to something else. So here's how this is a struggle. Every time we say yes to something, now that's not bad to say yes to things, but it's unhealthy and unhelpful to us if continuing to say yes to certain things are inconsistent or misaligned with what we might actually need in the moment. So we have to recognize that there is a trade-off. Like, we fill up our days oftentimes with things that are draining to us, that are depleting us, and we're not leaving room to refuel, to get re-energized, to make time for things that really matter to us, things that are meaningful for us. So it's helpful for us to consider, again, every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. Boundaries with self simply means asking ourselves, when I say yes to this, fill in the blank, whatever this represents. When I say yes to this, ask the question, what am I saying no to instead? When I say yes to go help somebody with that project, what am I saying no to? No to personal time that I might spend by myself, or time that I might spend with my spouse, time that I might spend with my family, time that I might be doing something that is like rejuvenating and life-giving to me. And then you just got to ask the question, is the trade-off worth it, right? If I'm going to say yes to this, you're asking the question, then what am I saying no to? And then just that follow-up. Is it worth it? I mean, sometimes the answer is yes. Yes, it is worth it, right? And all that this does is it's not helping us determine whether we're going to say yes or no to everything every time. It just simply helps us slow down, helps us take inventory, recognizes that there's a trade-off, that every yes comes with a no, and then we're going to ask, hey, is the trade-off worth it? So let me give you a quick example of that. Worked with a client recently. We're gonna call him Marcus. Marcus is like the consummate helper. Like, he is the guy that you want on your team. He is a team player. He is the one who shows up early. He's the one who stays late. He is like all in to anything and everything that he says he's going to be all into. So when he's at work, he says yes to every project, every request, every last minute favor. When he's home, he's jumping in to support the family in any way, in every way that he can. And I remember him telling me one day that he was exhausted. And I asked him to tell me more about that, and he shared with me that his experiences, he just feels like he can't say no. And I was really intrigued by that. So I asked him to kind of explain a little bit more, and we explored a little bit more of this. And it really came out to this idea for Marcus, which was, he had this belief, I can't say no, because if I say no, I'm going to let somebody down, or somebody is going to perceive me as selfish or as rude. And that just wasn't a thought that he was willing to bear. That just wasn't an outcome that he was willing to accept. So it led back to his belief. Belief is, I just can't say no. I just feel like I can't say no to anyone, anytime, about anything. Like, imagine if you were Marcus. In fact, maybe you don't have to imagine. Maybe this is you. You feel like you're just stuck in this rut. Like you're sort of slave to this idea or this mindset that says, I have to keep saying yes. And I'm unwilling to say no because of the possible outcome of people will think I'm selfish. People might be disappointed at me. I might let somebody down. They might get upset at me. So that conversation that Marcus and I had in this session turned into this incredible opportunity of growth for him. Like, he was able to make this shift in his mindset that boundaries are not selfish, but rather boundaries are stewardship. He actually began to recognize that when he was able to take care of himself, he was able to rest. He was able to do things that were not just depleting him, but he was able to do things that were fueling him up, that were giving him life. That he actually recognized that he was able to be more present with others. That he was able to show up as his true, full self in his relationships. That when he was saying yes to certain things in his life, that he was there with full energy and full passion and full presence. And over time, Marcus recognized that he was able to say no to certain people, certain projects, certain tasks, certain requests, and not feel guilt, not feel as if he was a disappointment, but rather make those decisions with confidence. Confidence knowing that he was making a healthy and right decision for him that was not only for him, but it was actually for others. Okay, so Marcus's story it's vital to this idea that boundaries with self are foundational, because boundaries with ourselves are actually the training ground for our boundaries with other people. When we can set limits to ourselves, when we can recognize and assess our own limitations, right, our own capacity, our own bandwidth, we learn to be able to actually trust that voice inside of us. That voice that used to be able to say, well, there's something going on in me and I want to say no, but I better say yes. This like pit in our stomach that might happen, this tightness in our chest that might occur, right? This racing experience of guilt or anxiety that would show up. But when we can start to listen to it and we can start to respond in a way that's honoring to ourselves, it ultimately becomes honoring to others. But it has to start from the inside out, not the outside in. Okay, so I want to just walk through a quick reflection exercise with you. So I want you to just take out a journal or maybe just take mental note of this. So I want you to think of a time recently when you said yes, but felt this inner deep no. Right, we've been talking about this, right? You ended up saying yes, but you had this thought, this feeling, this physical experience that when you said yes, something happened inside of you because it was inconsistent with what was really helpful and healthy for you in that moment. So again, you got an example, right? Think of this. What did that yes cost you? I want you to play it out in your mind for a second. What did that yes cost you? Did it cost you time, energy, money, peace, something else? What did saying yes cost you? In a sense, what I'm asking the question, so what we talked about earlier, is what were you having to say no to in the midst of that? Here's a follow-up question. What was your body telling you in that moment? Remember, I just talked about that like tightness in your chest, that pit in your stomach, that racing thought. What did your body tell you when the word yes came out of your mouth, even though there was this kind of revolting something going on inside of you because you desperately wanted to say no? What was your body telling you? I just want you to envision for a moment. Like, just imagine with me. What would it have looked like if you would have paused to honor that inner no? So rather than just quickly blurting out, yeah, I can be there. Yes, I can help you. Yes, whatever you need, I'm on it. I got it. What if you had to pause, check in with yourself, listen to that inner no? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to write it down. I want you to write it down, to be honest, to be real, and I want it to be something that you would think about carrying forward, like a lesson learned in this example from the past. We're going to allow the past to teach us for the future. So I want you to then complete this sentence. The next time I feel the inner no, I will, and then just blank. I will fill in the blank. Next time I hear the inner no, I will fill in the blank. Okay, so I want to challenge you before we wrap up today. And I'm in two ways. First of all, I want to challenge you with maybe something you can kind of take with you today, something you can take with you into the week ahead. And I want you to practice some small, simple boundary setting with yourself. Maybe you're going to set a boundary with yourself, something like, I'm going to wrap up my workday at a certain time, whether my work is done or not done, whether I've completed all my tasks or I haven't completed all my tasks. I'm going to commit to be done at a certain time. Or maybe it's, I'm going to take a lunch break today, like a real, actual lunch break. I'm not going to work from my desk. I'm not going to be eating while I'm trying to text and crank out some communications with other people. No, I'm going to take a real lunch break today. Or maybe it's I'm going to say no to one extra obligation. So whatever has already been requested of me that I haven't responded to, whatever's going to come today as a request, I'm just going to choose just one of them. I'm going to choose to say no to one extra obligation. Okay, so the other challenge is, and I referenced this at the very beginning of our time together, is today, if you're watching this live, and if you're not watching this live, you can come back to it. It's on demand. It's in our coaching platform, in our app, on our website. You can find the Strength Begins with Boundaries 14-Day Challenge. It's an incredible challenge. In week 1, we're going to focus the whole week on boundaries with self. Like, that's the foundational work, right? Just like we talked about today. And we're going to build on that and grow through that and develop new habits and shift our mindset and have new frameworks to be able to set boundaries with ourselves. And then in week 2 of that challenge, we're going to build on that. Week 2, we're going to focus on boundaries with others, how we set healthy and helpful boundaries with other people that honor them and honor us at the same time. Hey, so if you haven't already gone in, if you haven't found that challenge, if you haven't joined, by the way, that challenge is free, so you can jump into it at no expense. Find it in our platform and join us for the challenge. All right, as we wrap up, just a final reminder today, right? This mindset shift that we're making today, and we're carrying it forward into the future, is this: boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are not self-centered. Boundaries are not narcissistic. Boundaries are not rude. No, boundaries are about stewardship, right? The ability to take inventory and take assessment, the ability to check in with ourselves, to be able to recognize that every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to someone else. Every time we're committed to honor someone else, we have to check in to make sure that we're also honoring ourselves. Every time we say yes to something that might be draining to us, we have to check in to be able to say, hey, am I making commitments to refuel and rejuvenate myself so I can be the best version of myself for myself and for others? All right, it's great to be with you guys.